Sustainability. It's something we haven't talked about a lot this show, but it's at the core of what the industry's talking about. And some of the feedback we've gotten over the years regarding this topic has been kind of ambiguous. And what I think is happening is a lot of people don't really understand what we mean by sustainability. Are we talking about the supply chain management? Are we talking about reducing waste? So this next panel is going to address those questions about exactly what sustainability means, what steps you can take towards sustainable initiatives in your own companies, in your own brands. And it's going to be a very practical panel discussion. So I'd like to introduce our moderator. He is the Senior Vice President of Worldwide Responsible Accredited Production, or WRAP. Their booth is right over here. Please welcome Clay Hickson.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here. WRAP has been at all the ATS shows in Canada and this second show here in Miami. I just want to frame the conversation a little bit, and then I'll bring out our other two panelists. They'll sit here. So the title of this is Optimizing Your Supply Chain for Compliance, Waste Minimization, and Sustainable Sourcing. And as Jason said, there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of concern over the years about how products are made, where they're made, what goes into the products, and what happens to that waste stream. So let me first just introduce a little bit about WRAP. So WRAP is the world's largest certification program in the apparel textile footwear sector. And we focus exclusively on this sector in order to be able to make sure that we understand the types of products that are in the supply chain. And we work with companies, factories, brands, and retailers all over the world. 40 plus countries certifying these facilities that they are ethical manufacturers. So there's the question that Jason mentioned. What is sustainability? Because there is so much concern and interest about what and how and why our products are being made and who's using them among all the different constituents, the stakeholders. We want to today discuss first some definitions about what sustainability is, and at WRAP the definition that we like to use, because they are so very much context driven, is looking at the big picture. Sustainability is really all about being able to do what we're doing today in the same fashion over time, so that future generations can actually do the same thing. So it's not just about the environment. It's not just about, is the product ethically produced? It's also about, is the business sustainable? Can that business stay profitable? Because if the factory, if the brand is not profitable, then there is not going to be a company, and the workers will not actually have employment going forward. So now, after giving this very brief introduction, and it looks like things got mixed up just a little bit, want to introduce our two panelists, and then we're going to have a conversation amongst the three of us and open the floor for discussion with you. But first up is Gabriella Smith, Gabby, and she is the co-founder of Upcycle. And in just a moment, she will explain exactly what Upcycle does. And second is the Director of Business Development at SGS, a very large testing and auditing company. So first we will turn the mic over to Gabby to very briefly explain just what Upcycle is and how it fits into this whole equation.
Thank you, Clay. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Great. Well, it's an immense pleasure to be sitting, amongst these guys who are absolute experts in auditing and everything that sustainable fashion wants to really be. So I'm here to present the Upcycle project, which is a local Miami-based platform. Our mission is really to educate, disrupt, and change the fashion industry. Upcycle's real true mission is to raise awareness on the waste that the fashion industry creates through upcycling. We want consumers as well as brands and designers to know their environmental impact and their social impact. And so together we can move to a sustainably sourced and ethically made industry. That's definitely easier said than done. Today, the fashion industry works in a take, make, waste model. So how many people here are fashion designers? Raise your hands. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. So we have some fashion designers who are probably very familiar with this model, correct? Who here is a consumer? Right. So we're all consumers. So we have 2 responsible people here. We have the designers and we also have the consumers. So this take, make, waste model works like this. So we take from the environment because everything that we have on right now, who's wearing clothes, takes different resources to make. So it takes 5,000 liters of water to make a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Well, if we drink 2 liters of water a day, how many liters of possible drinking water do you have in your closet? For instance, I have 429 years of drinking water in my closet. That's my responsibility. So I'm not buying any new t-shirts right now. Also then when we waste it, where do we do with it? Do we recycle it or does it go straight to the landfill? Do we donate it and does it go to the secondhand clothing market? So these are all things as consumers and designers we need to think about. Also, we have a huge social impact. So who makes our clothes? So now we have take. We take from the environment, now we make. Who makes it? Are they getting paid fair wages? Women are really at risk in the fashion supply chain because they're really the ones who are making our clothes. And there are just hundreds of thousands of cases of violence and negligence that women go through every single day to make the pieces that we own and love. However, sometimes we don't really love them. So we wear it 1 time, 2 times, maybe 3 times, and then it goes into the Goodwill, into the second-hand clothing market, or simply into the garbage. Unfortunately, that counts for like 25 billion pounds of textile waste every year in the United States alone. That's not counting, that's post-consumer waste. That's not counting your factory waste or anything else. So only 15% of that gets recycled. That's 70 pounds per person that we're responsible for that goes straight into the landfill every year. That's a lot. So then we ask ourselves, where does sustainability start? So does it start with the designer? Does it start with the consumer? Well, we believe at the Upcycle project that sustainability can start with the designer. The designer needs to have the intention to create something that will live on beyond just one piece of clothing, so that it won't go cradle to grave. I read a book called Cradle to Cradle that I really, really recommend and love. And the author says that we design cradle to grave in a linear economy, which is take, make, waste. When we have cradle to cradle, we create a circular economy. We skip the recycling economy because in recycling then you make a second product and then boom, it's in the garbage again. We want these products to keep continuing on and move industry through industry. So we want to do that in the fashion industry and also in all the other industries that, that we touch every single day. And lastly, I want to leave you with a really simple quote that really resonates with me. And unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to change. It's not. And this could be applied not only to fashion, but really to everything you do. If you have a diet that you want to commit to, unless you care about your own diet, nothing is going to change. So it's really our responsibilities as consumers as well to be able to change the world that we want to live in.
Thank you, Gabby. Let's turn to Kathrine from SGS to give a little bit explanation on how you actually determine what the product is, what's in it.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathrine Stein. How's everybody doing today? I hope it's really been a great show for you. And we're here to really talk about a heavy topic, and we think it's such a big topic and we really can't make a difference, but we can. And so just to talk about the hows, I think the world's getting very small right now. And believe it or not, what you do does make a difference. I like that quote. So SGS is a huge organization. We have, I think, it keeps on going up. What's my latest calculation? 85,000 employees in 1,750 offices around the world. We're everywhere where you will be. And what does that mean? Transparency is key today. So picture this, for $350, SGS can work on your behalf and go visit your factory, visit your product. We can be you for instead when you can't be there. It's more expensive for you to be there. I can get a local guy to be there for you. We're at your factory. You can't see your factory. You can look at that nice brochure of that factory, but you don't really see that factory. You don't see the stairwells. You don't see those locked doors. You don't see the people working in the facility. You don't see the chemicals on the floor. So that's where we come in. So we provide a lot of services to that. So I'd like to say we're the unsexy side of the fashion business. All the fashion designers work with my company. All the big brand names work with my organization. But really, those regulations, those nasty products that are made in your shirt you're wearing now, in the shoes you're wearing right now, my labs verify that it's not there through chemical management and chemical testing. So there's a lot of choices out there in the laundry list. You have many choices as a entrepreneur, as a factory owner, as a designer, as a sourcing agent. You have a lot of choices to make. You have a lot of choices in auditing and how to look at your supply chain and what applicable choices you have. What do you want to be as a brand? What do you want to be as a company? What do you want to be all about? So, we definitely are involved and partnered with people like RAP and BSCI, and we really like to not replicate what really works already. We like to keep not exercising audit fatigue, and we want people in factories to get comfortable knowing things in a particular way and stand up for what they believe in. And just to give you a really cute video that supports Gabriella.
Do you know what goes into the clothes you're wearing every day, other than the effort to make them look fashionable? To put one piece of clothing together, a lot of chemicals are used in order to achieve the look, feel, and the function. In fact, it takes more than 40 types of chemicals to turn cotton from the field into a simple dress, and more than 30 types of chemicals to manufacture a simple belt, starting from leather hide and product. Have you considered the amount of chemicals that went into the clothes you're wearing right now? What environmental impact may these chemicals create? So, how do we minimize the negative impact caused by the textile production process? The key is to build an effective chemical management system to increase traceability during production. However, there is a gap between what the brand wants and the ability of the supplier to be able to meet the goal. Often, this boils down to the factory not having the appropriate expertise or experience. In order to bridge the gap, the Hazardous Substance Control, or HSC workshop, developed by SGS, offers industry professionals modular training that is process-specific to each stage of the textile manufacturing process, such as dyeing, printing, washing, and finishing, and in the leather tanning process. Using the concept of chemical flow management, the training enhances the technical knowledge and enables professionals to track chemicals moving through the factory at any stage of production by means of developing chemical inventory as well as a traceable system. This system supports brands and their supply chain in tracing the chemicals all the way back to their raw materials and chemicals. So root causes can be determined in case products do not meet specific requirements. By doing so, it allows corrective actions to be taken before it's too late. In addition to the traceability system, the HSE workshop also centers upon the identification of individual chemical risks
Thank you. So today we have three different but related perspectives here on the stage. As I said, RAP is a standard-setting certifying body that determines whether a factory is a sweatshop, is one that's treating its workers right, is one that is using chemicals in a proper fashion. We have Gabby with the Upscale project that is all about educating students, designers, different people in the supply chain, the value chain, about what goes into the products and how those products can be used for a longer lifespan. And then a very large global company like SGS that is testing among its other activities and training what is the chemical, what are the chemicals and the chemical composition of the product. So we want to have a conversation here for the next little while. And we talked about sustainability. We're also talking about responsible sourcing. So I would like to hear from both Gabby and Kathrine what they feel, what their definitions of sustainability and responsible sourcing, ethical sourcing are. Turn to you, Gabby.
Thank you. So sustainable sourcing and ethical sourcing or ethical responsibility?
Ethical sourcing, responsible sourcing, and you can even say ethical responsibility.
So we all have a responsibility and we all want to be good. I've never met a designer or a brand who says that they don't care about their environment and that they don't care about the social impact that they have on the people who make their clothes. So I believe that social responsibility is really, really, really important in your intention when you're creating your brand. It has to be first. You have to understand who makes your clothes and in what conditions they are going to make your clothes, or your fabric for that matter. And sustainable sourcing, it's really the same thing. What is the impact from the things that you're buying? So even if you're buying from a shop, from a conference like this, what are the questions that you're going to ask the suppliers? Asking really tough questions is very important. Not only from a chemical standpoint, it's like, how do these fabrics get dyed? Who makes them? Where are they made? Etc. So I think that responsibility really lies within the consumer and the designer. It depends who you are in the value chain, I suppose.
Well, as you said before, each of us has a responsibility in this supply chain. And so, from your perspective, Kathrine, what would you add to that?
So the definition in regards to ethical supply chain management sourcing, it really involves the social aspects, meaning, workers' rights, safety, health, as well as the environment. I think, it's really, back when I've been around for a while in this industry, we never even monitored factories from a social perspective. And now you have this much bigger picture because now we're worried about our planet and we polluted so many rivers around the world. As American consumers, we are contributing to the destruction of environments in third world countries. I think that's where we have to widen the lens to say you're participating in that. So really the definition is not compromising the environment for our business and use, and doing it in a humane way.
And that word, the environment, is a very broad word. It not only is the water, the air, it is the social environment, the community in which the workers are living, in which the factory is placed, wherever it may be around the world. So we started out the discussion by saying that there is an increasing concern about ethical and sustainable business practices, and particularly in the fashion industry, in the apparel, textile, footwear industry. Is there real concern, real interest among both consumers and corporations, the brands and retailers about these issues, or is it lip service?
You know, I can immediately jump in there. We're working from the small brands to the big brands. Number one, when you're socially sound and you're doing the right thing in any factory, in any ecosystem, in your own corporations, what do you have? You have happy workers. Usually happy workers are what? Good workers. You've just managed the risks on quality levels, attention, dedication, people showing up. Take it from another perspective, from an environmental perspective. We have to do the right thing. No brand that establishes themselves want to be written up in the press because someone was getting a rash on their product or some sort of haphazard chemical was found that was carcinogenic. I don't think we want our babies wearing clothes like that. I don't even think I want my adult person wearing toxic substances. So, we don't really know I don't even know what's in. I do know actually because I know the designer and I work at the company, but sometimes you don't know what's in the product you're wearing.
Absolutely, and we were having a conversation just briefly, just a little while ago, about a uniform company that is creating these uniforms, and they're going through a class action lawsuit because the people wearing the uniforms are, getting hair loss and different rashes around their bodies. These chemicals are real things, and the more that these kinds of things come up, and the fact that people have a voice, they can demand transparency. So as consumers, I feel like we can push the brands to be more transparent and say, look, what's in my clothes? How did you dye these shirts? Why am I getting a rash? Is this formaldehyde? Kathrine just told me, I had no idea that some blends had formaldehyde in them as well. So I think that corporations are really truly making a shift because the consumers are also asking for it. I don't think is lip service, but also they have to manage their profits as well. So I think it's gonna take a little while before we see massive change from the really big players, but I think that the conversation is definitely started.
It seems that a number of the other actors are pushing the large corporations. They're socially responsible investors, the SRI community. They often ask the hard questions at board meetings, at shareholder meetings, about what the impact of the product of the company is. And so you're finding more and more large companies that are instituting and sharing every year a report, CSR report, and a sustainability report. And there are positions that are created at these companies that focus on the environment, that focus on social aspects. So it does seem that there is more than lip service. But then when the consumers go to the store and they see that cute little dress, how are they reacting? Gabby?
Well, that's a tough one. I think there's a lot of psychology that goes into fashion, and why we buy the things we buy are a lot more than just, that pretty dress. That pretty dress means your lifestyle, the way that you're going to feel, the brand, how much you paid for it, if your girlfriend has it, if you saw it on an influencer. There's a lot that goes through our mind when we go and buy that piece of clothing. Unfortunately, sustainability is the cherry on top. So I always think that you have to create a product that is beautiful, that people want to wear, and that it's also sustainable. But nobody's going to buy a product that is sustainable and it's none of the others. So it has to be practical, it has to be pretty, it has to be fashionable if you want to make fashion, and it also has to be sustainable. But sustainability on its own, I think right now we're not there yet.
I do think in time water will seek its own level. The progress that our industry has made. Remember, we are designers and merchandisers, but we're not factory owners. This is a very real thing. So how do you impose and find, and we're not chemical specialists. We're designers and apparel gurus, we have a love for fashion. Fashion means change. We don't know chemistry makeup. So there's a lot of deficits there. So you do need a community. You do need to learn from others. You do need to know what's available to you. You stay good at what you do, and you like Clay said, you have to learn how to ask the right questions, and then figure it out. Do customers care? I think we do, but we don't know what we don't know. If it's not transparent, what do we know about?
So it does seem that consumers, that investors, that companies increasingly are paying attention to these things, and that they are making a difference to the bottom line. So that is definitely encouraging. And with organizations that are providing a lot of information to the designers, and I think, Gabby, as you said, designers have to think about from the very beginning, really how that product, how that fabric is going to react over the life cycle of the product, and is it a long life cycle, which I think is part of what your program, Gabby, is trying to educate and achieve. So just before we open the floor to see what questions we might have from you, I wanted to ask two last questions or see how things go. But what are some of the best practices that you see out there in the industry, among the design community, among the brands and the retailers with regard to sustainability, ethical, responsible supply chains?
There's a lot of best practices. First, know you're not alone, and know you don't have to be an expert in it all. So there are many resources. A company like SGS, a company like RAP, many educators. We even have technical resources that actually can help you with chemical management. The video you did see is an excellent communicative platform. The suppliers love it. You know what? I think our suppliers aren't so bad. They really want to do the right thing. They just need to know how. And what's your language to what's important to you. And you'd find them very cooperative. There are tools out there right now in our industry that is being widely adopted through the retail industry, such as the HIGG, which is the Hang Index. This is a great hit place to start. It is really an inventory taking of your supply chain. There are other coalitions like the Sustainable Apparel Coalitions that you can group together. There are so many associations that are having the same conversation just as we're sitting here. And who knows a little bit about this and knows a little bit about that. So Gabriella, after this meeting, we'll have a little chit chat and we'll find out how we can align. Same with me and Clay.
No, absolutely. Kathrine is a world of knowledge, and like she said, we have to work together. I'm not a chemical expert, I can't go and learn all of that stuff, so working together is really, truly important. There's other people who are doing great things. Fashion Revolution is an NGO that I'm really passionate about. They have something called the Transparency Index, and they go and they survey different brands and measure their transparency based on what they provide publicly. So they're not going into these companies and the companies are giving them the information. No, they're just solely looking at what they're doing from the outside and what consumers see. I've used that tool a lot to help smaller brands and kind of align to a transparent supply chain, which can be like the Hang Index by the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, can be a little bit daunting. This is an Excel sheet as big as this conference. It's giant and it can be really overwhelming, especially if you're a small brand. For consumers, the Good On You app from Fashion for Good is really great to find sustainable brands that you can purchase that are reasonably priced, because we all know that there are sustainable brands that are gorgeous, but they're also slightly out of our budgets. So the Good On You app has a really good mix. There's also a friend of mine who founded a company called SourceMap. It's based out of New York, and they source everything. It's called SourceMap, I said that. They source everything out of every industry, and they found that in the food industry, cacao, which we make chocolate out of, trades better if it's fair trade certified. So I think that the fashion industry can hopefully start, in that same trend as food is going.
Well, as you said, there are a lot of resources that are out there. We're not all in this alone, and that's one of the great things about an event like this Apparel Textile sourcing event here, where there are a lot of resources that come together, where you can learn from your peers and from others and find out that there is somebody maybe right next door or halfway around the world who is doing what you may need help with. So to round out our questions from up here, wanted to ask each of the panelists what their respective calls to action would be. What would you ask of each of us in our individual capacities, whether it's corporate or individual?
I think it's education and just doing things like this, being for me to give my time to come here and talk to you about some of these initiatives, to spread the word, to know what's out there. And I think the more people know about the tools and the resources out there, you don't know that they're really there until you really hear it for the first time. There's a wealth of information. Companies like Blue Sign give you a laundry list of trends. Part of the biggest challenges in the fashion industry is that it means change. We're always changing our product. We're not just making this redundant, same t-shirt, same t-shirt. Was always using that next hot widget, that next applique, that next trendy print color, or who knows what. So it becomes a challenge. So you always have to be on your game.
So, call to action. So last year I took a no shopping vow, right? So I didn't shop. I didn't really buy anything for a year, and I swore off fast fashion. I'm someone who loves fashion. I have a closet full of clothes and nothing to wear. I mean, that happens to a lot of us. So I've really stuck to repurposing the things that I have in my closet. If I'm going to buy something, I make sure that I know where it's coming from. I make sure that I know who made the clothes, what materials are into it. I use a lot of natural materials. I stay away from, synthetics that absorb a lot of different chemicals that can have different effects on our bodies, and just be super mindful about what you buy. Not only clothes, but in general. We're a completely wasteful society, and we don't have to be. I mean, we're all sitting here, we're all educated people, and we could just do better. So if we can just commit to one thing that we do better every day, I think that's good enough.
And if each of us is committing to doing one thing, one good thing, then that will make a big difference. And to build off both those comments, collaboration, I think, is something that we all need to do more of. We don't necessarily have to be experts in everything, nor do we have to do everything ourselves. There are other resources, there are other people who can help us along our journey, whether it's being a designer, a factory manufacturer, whoever we may be, wherever we may be in that supply chain. So education, collaboration, doing one good thing each day, or whatever time frame it may be. I think those are some good things to remember and take away from this panel. Now we'd like to open the floor up to questions from you, the participants. So if you raise your hand, we'll have a microphone. Jason has one there. So please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can continue conversation.
I usually like to say that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So
Very true.
Any questions for our panelists? Raise your hand and I'll come on over. Oh, one over there.
this is truly the most nerve-wracking time when you're sitting on a panel and somebody raises their hand and you're like, oh my gosh, please don't pick me.
Jeff asked
I don't know the
It's
answer.
the worst.
This question is just for Gabby.
Thank you, Jeff.
So sustainability, so great conversation, thank you. I'm wondering, and perhaps others are, where does it begin and where does it end? With RAP, with SGS, largely about garments and textiles, but it goes a lot further than that, both upstream to the farms and to fiber, and when you mentioned synthetics and your personal shopping habits, and then obviously downstream, which is what you're working on. But what is that? How long is sustainability, and is it just important with the garment making and what we're buying and then disposing of, or does it go further?
That's a huge, a true sustainability is cyclic, right? I don't think it ever ends. So whether you can even start at the seed level, but really, you're starting from the dirt, and then you're starting from before then. So really, a true ecosystem is really what we're looking for, that is cyclic, that has benefits and purpose along the way. I don't think there is a beginning or an end. I think a company can make choices at what part of the ecosystem they'll contribute to. Part of the biggest challenge with the word sustainability is it's different to everybody. It is really hard to make a sustainable apparel garment. Very difficult. I've got experts on my staff that there's not a lot of people just running to be a sustainable apparel brand because it is the road less traveled. But with that said, you can do very simple things within your own household by recycling bottles and paper. I don't think there's a beginning or an end, Jeff. I think it's a really great question because there's so many even layers within the apparel process we cannot access down to those tiers. So I hope that gave you the unanswered answer.
I'll take a little stab at it. So we can think about sustainability in two different ways, right? So like Kathrine mentioned, it's circularity. So promoting that circularity, but of course not everything can be reused. So from a design perspective, we can create things that can go back into the biosphere, so back into the soil, and then we have technology. I mean, this is not going to become a tree ever, no matter what we do. So, but what are we going to do with the spike? So, and then we have the technosphere. So how do we repurpose the things that we have that we know cannot go back into the soil to become something else and to extend its life? So I think sustainability is about just extending the life of everything that we create beyond its first life. So multiple lives, I suppose.
This question here.
Hi. So coming from a background with investment, it's really difficult to talk to your investors about this because with fast fashion, it's a conundrum where, of course, we all want to do better for the environment, but you have someone behind your company who will sink the ship quite literally if you don't produce and you don't have return. So every season we have to produce X amount. And I honestly, because I'm a founder and I'm talking with my team about this every day. Where do we sit? Like, how do we do this? And there's no guideline. There's really no guideline. And there's not like a swatch book where I can say, okay, this poly is great. And our customers will receive this really well, but how do we use a natural fiber to replace it? So it's all poly. The other thing is I virtually cannot do anything. I can't go to the investor and say, we're gonna use a $25 per yard fabric. And so it's like, I'm gonna sink or I'll be sustainable, and there's no in between. And like, I don't know if anybody here is also a founder, but it's like I raise my hand and like, and literally there's like no option. And like that's the whole thing. So it's like, of course we want to do that, but when you're starting up, and it's literally like when startups are going through the revolution that they kill the environment, but they don't have a choice. And that's what I talk with my women every day. I'm like, okay, well, there's no other way to go about it. And so that's why, I think it does take like panels where it's literally ideation. How do we actually create factories that, aren't just trying to feed their families in third world countries?
Thank you for sharing what you just talked about and I hope I was trying to allude to that really for a fashion brand or any company to be sustainable or to really be, make strong ethical choices and sourcing ethically, it's the road less traveled. It is not easy. you know, a lot of apparel brands that I know today, they make choices of certain products that they can commit to being maybe organic cotton. They have a commitment, and it becomes a process that goes on and on every year. You know, that okay, that they're gonna say, we're gonna be no PVC free, you know, like Puma did. They're gonna take a lane. Pick a lane and drive down that lane. You can't be on all roads, on all highways at all times. And sometimes that lane may be the longest route, not the shortest route. So, you know, I think there's choices that people need to make. And I do not think it's very hard to be 100% sustainable and to be, you know, 100% ethically at one day. I think it's a process that we grow towards.
Part of what I think I was hearing from you also is that it can be difficult to find that investor that will actually support the types of activities that you have that you want to find. And so it may be that there are some investor communities out there, angels or VCs, that might be focused, have a longer term vision in this type of business. So I don't know, we want to put you on the spot for a second, Jeff, but would you have some suggestions of where somebody like this should look, organizations?
There are groups that would have the conversation. It starts with their long-term vision and then the scale of your business, the size of your business.
Also, I want to tell you, I mean, if you're having this feeling, if you're asking yourself these questions every single day, you have a responsibility. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to be like everybody else, because it's unfair to you. You're not fulfilling your own, you know, dream as a designer. If you're, no, okay, maybe you don't want to invest in my company, then I'm not the right company for you to invest in. Maybe my ship will sink, but you don't compromise your values for investing, because then again, you're not going to create something that has value. And at the end of the day, it's your intuition, it's your design, it's your company that will give value to the end consumer. And that end consumer is going to love the piece that you're wearing, that you made for them.
So one or two more questions.
Hi guys, thank you so much for the presentation. So I'm launching my business on 2020, and my line is actually, it was created for women who travel, women on the go. So I'm looking for fibers that are sustainable, but also that travel well. You know, so I found some options, but again, when it comes to like, there's a lot of poly out there, and natural fibers that stand out are also a little hard to find. Is there, you know, any fabric that you would recommend that travels well, that doesn't need poly?
Well, I'm curious why you think poly's bad. You know, in studies that show, just so you know, the most compromising fiber out there is, you know, is not necessarily polyester. I'm not going to name what it is. I want to challenge that. Maybe there's a way to rethink how you're thinking about your product being sustainable, such as what Gabriella does.
Right. So I do a lot of upcycling. It's tough to mass market upcycling. We do a lot of upcycle projects, basically to raise awareness. Although bed sheets are actually pretty awesome to upcycle because they're just very big and you can do a lot with them. But I'm going to send you to the CFDA. The CFDA has a sustainability tab on their website, and they have a textile resource pamphlet there, and they have all of the sustainable brands and fabrics that you could use and research. So there's a lot of, like Kathrine was saying, there's a ton of research out there. So definitely that's a really, really good place to start, the CFDA Textile Library.
Check out Blue Sign and see if Blue Sign has any listing of some sustainable fiber companies to start there, and then who they sell with.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, there's options, but it's more like travel friendly what I'm looking for. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you all for attending this morning's workshop, panel discussion, and join me in thanking Kathrine and Gabby for participating today. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay.